Hello, my name is Monica. I am a cultural programmer here at Mosaic, and this is part one of my video series where I talk to local Latinx owned businesses. In this episode, I will be talking to two artists who use their creativity to talk about important social justice issues. So let's get into it. So first, you can start off by introducing yourself, your name, where you're from, your business.
Well, my name is Carlos Rodriguez. I'm a San Jose muralist and a business owner. And I've been an activist in the community for about 20 years. I work with youth, nonprofits, alternative placement academies. I work for the city of San Jose, work for the APPN, which is the Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention Network, for a while. And I also work for Proyecto Chac, which is put in Mountain View. And at that time, I was doing healthy and unhealthy relationships trainings, and I was also doing HIV/AIDS awareness, and I was doing art too. I was using graffiti as an outreach tool to do all that stuff.
So how did you get started with art?
It was through Makla, I believe. I went over and 18 years old, I brought two paintings to the director of Makla, which is Maribel Alvarez. And I asked her, I said, would you look at these paintings and tell me if I have anything here that I can actually pursue, you know? And I had one painting that was like reminiscing of graffiti art, you know? I had another one that was more of an expression of like liberation from like migration, I guess.
Okay.
It was this like character, like kind of breaking chains, but it had no face.
Oh.
It was just like a body, you know? And so she really liked that one. And she said like it was interesting that I didn't really put a face on the character. I think she saw more potential in that one. And that's after that, they gave me a job and it kind of introduced me to what the art scene was about a little bit. And I fell in love with working with youth. They placed me at a gym, a night gym. And I was doing art there with the students. And a mentor of mine, Martin Hernandez, who was like my teacher at the time.
Oh, okay. So how did you decide on murals, or where did that kind of start?
That was an early memory. I was about maybe like in second grade in Mexico. And my mom and my auntie, they would go and take my cousins to Instituto Cabañas in Guadalajara, because I'm from Guadalajara.
Okay.
And they would have ballet classes, singing lessons, they would have art classes. But in the corridors of the Cabañas is where Orozco did most of his murals. So there's frescoes there by Orozco. There's the Burning Man dome, which is, I don't know, a couple of 100 feet, you know, and big. And I was looking at those paintings, wanting to do one of those one day, I guess. And that was where I decided I wanted to be a muralist.
So what are some of your influences when it comes to your art, and how did you find your style of work?
Influences have been many. It was Rivera and Orozco and Siqueiros that really captivated me as I started understanding what they were doing and what age they were, how big the monuments were, the different techniques they were using, the power of the movement at the time in the 1920s, you know, 30s, 40s.
Is there a mural that you've done that you're most proud of?
There's a few. But they all have a story.
Yeah.
You know, and some stories are more empowering to you versus others that kind of like break you down and you have to build yourself up. You know, I think favorite murals are the ones that you feel valued throughout the mural, or you feel like you created something powerful with the community, you know? So I really feel like one of my favorite murals is the one in Washington where I did with fourth graders. And there was this young student who was a leader for sure, you know? Yeah. And he drew a world with a bunch of kids like stick figures holding hands around it. You know? And then everybody copied him. And so that's how I knew. I was like, you know what? That little guy right there has something. So I look at stuff like that, and then I develop it a little bit so that it creates the illusion that it's like a good, beautiful mural, but it really was his imagery that made it on the front page, you know, on the centerfold. So that I think is very rewarding. That mural was really the beginning of me understanding that even fourth graders can produce something beautiful, you know? They actually do a better job because they work together better than adults.
Yeah, they have that creativity.
They just want to do it, you know? They just do it for the fun of it, and it's not stressful. And when you get into the older kids or even community, the fears always come up. And I think for us is that we don't think we're good enough sometimes. And so that fear comes out when you know you have to do something that everybody's going to see.
Yeah.
And somehow it's my job to find ways to make something beautiful with their help 100%, but with very little skill. And then at the end, they see that they really did take ownership in it. They really did do it. You know?
So what are some social justice issues you are passionate about, and how are those issues addressed in your artwork?
Well, social justice is a very delicate, topic right now.
Yeah.
And it has always been for me, because as an immigrant, and I say that in the scope of the system, because obviously we're not immigrants on stolen land, but the way I felt coming into a new environment was very obvious to me that prejudice, racism has always been a thing that kind of freezes you on your tracks,
Yeah.
And so I experienced it and felt it, and I feel that working to empower our youth is the number one thing that we all got to do and be attentive to be able to create that feeling in a young person, kind of like surpasses all the negative stigmas that have been put on that person.
Yeah.
So for me, creating murals with community really brings things together. Kids that don't have confidence in themselves find it within the mural process. And then at the end, we finish and they see what they did, something that came from an idea to an actual concept, to then developing how we're going to do it, and then putting the process together to finish it. And then at the very end, we create celebration out of it. They're celebrated for what they did, something good, right?
Yeah.
The positive reinforcement that they really understand exists is everything to me.
How did COVID impact the art you were creating, and then did your creative process change in any way?
Dramatically. Thank you for asking that, because I actually feel embarrassed with some of my clients. I started creating more in my house with utensils that obviously the stores were closed. We felt it for a while,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what am I going to do, And everything that I do revolves around people. I create T-shirts for a living, so there's no more gatherings. There was no more, huge events, right? So people don't want all these T-shirts. And then I do art and murals and community, and we all come together and paint them together. And that was not going to be a thing for a long time. So I just kind of looked for myself and started creating watercolors on paper bags. I had a lot of paper bags at home. So I started, Makla contacted me, and I did a workshop for them online. People really liked it. So I started creating these pieces on paper bags and titling them F COVID with my signature,
Yeah.
And so there's a handful of pieces that I created in that state. But then the George Floyd thing hit, and it really triggered a lot of things from my childhood, adjusting to this country, cops interaction with my friends, getting pulled over.
Yeah.
The fear kicked in, and it was real, right? And it wasn't a fear of I can't do nothing about it. It was more it's just not going to stop. And so it really changed my art at that point, where I really did not want to create anything, but I had to, in order to live. And everything else that I do, it has really grounded me, and it allowed me to live throughout these times. So after all that happened, then this is a piece of my new art, and I feel like it's an evolution of my work, because I'm flowing free with spirit, and I'm allowing my creativity to go any which way, but then bring it in with technique, and really be able to express what I want to express, instead of being afraid that I'm not going to be good enough to do it,
Yeah.
So finding ways around it has been the best lesson out of COVID.
Yeah, because I feel like during COVID, people were kind of just very overwhelmed, and it was hard for them to cope with these uncertain circumstances.
It was so much chaos, all this stuff, all this fear, this anger. And then one day I just said, I just started drawing.
So how has COVID impacted your business, and were there any positives that came out of these uncertain circumstances?
Yeah, I do feel for the hundreds of people, thousands of people that have lost their business. But it was the only thing that I could really think about, is be positive, and say, well, maybe this will be a blessing somehow. Hope maybe you can get by it and produce something positive out of all this So I started thinking in that way, and my wife and I started looking at what help was out there, if there was any grants, if there was any money for artists. Some people reached out to me and actually gave me money,
That's
nice, because they have recognized some of the work that I had done in the community. And we were able to upgrade all our equipment. We were able to really kind of get going, and a few murals came in. People were really, at the time, supportive, wanting to pay me exactly what I wanted. It was like the opposite of what you would think would have happened, And then more work came, and supportive people showed up out of everywhere. And my family was very supportive, and everything kind of lined up for us, and I'm blessed for that, But I also recognize that it's not that way for everyone, and that it could have been that way for us too. So we have to keep fighting for it. So I guess it comes with resilience. Like, I've been doing it for 20 years, and I didn't go to school for it. Like I said, I only had like one credit card, and I had to pay it because I didn't know how to handle it, and it was debt for like 10 years, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to do credit. I didn't understand credit. Financial literacy was really damaging for me. It's like a huge learning curve because I didn't understand money in that way,
Yeah. So what advice do you have for anyone just trying to pursue their passion for creating art?
Well, the number one thing is that you can't quit. You can't quit on yourself, and you have to believe in yourself and believe in the art you do and create and have a purpose for it, and really address your fears and know that 90% of what you fear is not true. 5% of that, the rest of that, you could do something about that. And the other one, there was nothing you could do about it anyway. So, a lot of the things that we gotta do is tell us that. So I would say, don't quit, and create, because it gives you a feeling of healing, of relief,
Yeah.
Because I think, and myself included, sometimes we do it because we want to be this or we want to be that, but it really, if it doesn't heal you, then it's not doing what it's supposed to do, And we all have different art within us. I also feel that art is something that you can train anybody to do, like math. And nowadays you can make a business with art from your house, your garage.
Is there any advice you would give to anyone considering starting a small business during a time like this?
Know your market, know why you want to do this product or this service, and whether it is a product or a service, to understand what the quarter taxes are versus the end of the year taxes, and how you should be prepping for them, because even the best businesses have difficulty dealing with that. Organization and process is key, or else you're just going to be spinning around and not knowing what was going wrong. And I wish somebody would have told me that, But it's something that you have to learn with experience, or you put yourself through school and you pay attention, Go to school to really maximize what those resources are offering you, not to go discover what you're going to do, but to really say, I'm going to go there because this is going to help me in my quest to what I'm doing. And if it doesn't fulfill you, then it's not substance for the soul.
So lastly, what message do you hope to leave your audience with through your art?
Honestly, for me, the art that I do is to reflect love and compassion. I find it funny that I have to deal with so many politics and be this person, that developed in the streets, of San Jose, to kind of defend it sometimes. But I would really like for people to see what the value of the art is in the community efforts, to hear people's stories, to know that I was always really in it for that. I really hope that people see the culture in my art, that they see a way to connect to that culture, and a way to connect to each other, because my art is about us growing up with our culture and only that. And so my whole approach is, let's see each other as human beings, and that we all have these emotions and feelings, and when we all go, the energy that stays is all equal, right? It's all the same, but it's all unique in its own way.
So where can people find your work?
You can find my work at carlosrodriguez.com, at rmclothing.com, at rmclothing, at carlosrmk for Instagram. You can find it here at RM Cultura House, This is my home, and I'm opening up for the culture, for the people out there. I'm setting up workshops. We're doing pop-ups, so you can come and find us here at Meridian Avenue, 451 Meridian Avenue, when we have events open. When those events are available, we will post them, and everybody's welcome to come to the events. So thank you so much for shining a little light on me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, coming from a young person, a young, strong woman. The work that you're doing is super powerful, so thank you.
So first, so just tell me a little bit about yourself, your name, where you're from, and your business.
My name is Julisa Garcia. I'm from San Jose. I was born and raised here. In regards to how I got started, I was kind of just like pushed into it a little bit, or like encouraged rather to do it. So I would make earrings for friends as gifts. This other person was like, I'm vending in a week, be there, have things ready. And so that was my first time vending, and I didn't have a name yet, but I just prepared as much as I could, and I did fairly well for my first time. So that was encouraging, and it's what like prompted me to do other events, and so I did.
So how did you come up with your business name?
When I literally woke up one morning and I was like, it's Soldadera, like that's what it is. And then Soldaderas being women who contributed to the revolution in Mexico.
Is there a piece that you designed you're most proud of?
I would say any one of the Cuello Xauqui earrings that I make. And I don't take credit for that because they're Cuello Xauqui's earrings. Cuello Xauqui being the Aztec goddess of the moon. And I had seen images of Cuello Xauqui in the past, but I didn't know who she was or didn't know anything about her story. But reading Sherry Moraga's words, again, very inspiring, and that's what prompted me to make Cuello Xauqui's earrings. Yeah, and also being a spiritual person, and was in conversation with somebody who's a bit of a spiritual guide, and they shared with me that this is something that I'm supposed to be making, and I'm supposed to be sharing her story. So and now having made her earrings for many years, people kind of know me for making her earrings, which I'm super grateful for. So I feel really honored to do that.
So how does your interest in social justice show through your jewelry?
It's pretty blatant sometimes.
Yeah, I saw your earrings. Yeah.
Yes, it's pretty straightforward, And I think when I first started doing it, I first started doing it with earrings, and I also did T-shirts and buttons, which I still, on occasion have for sale. And I know there were times where I'd be vending and people would be like, oh my gosh, what is that? Like, I don't, they expressed disgust for the words, for cursing, but I was like, you know what? If it's not for you, if that offends you, that's not on me,
So true.
And then I also realized, things that I make aren't for everybody. So, and personally, I mean, when I do get like pushback or I see people's like discomfort with it, like I realize like I'm doing my job, like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Certainly got pushback for certain things that I made, and use that opportunity to have conversations about white supremacy and anti-blackness, and the fact that we're on indigenous land, and just like remembering that. So yeah, I just throw my politics in there whenever I can.
That's so cool though. Yeah. And then what role does your cultural background play in the pieces that you design? You kind of already answered that, but
gosh, I don't even know if I answered that already, because I feel like the answer for that, like that's ongoing. I think that the more that I sit with myself and remember who I am, right? Because even like to reference the story of Cuello Xauqui, she was dismembered by her brother Huitziliopochtli, and she's a deity that's been adopted by Chicana feminists, and our job is to remember her, and doing so remembering ourselves. And I think that process of remembering, of putting the pieces together, and recognizing, like, again, that we've been dismembered by so many things, right?
Yeah.
So many things. The list goes on and on and on. And there are parts of ourselves that we forget, or don't even, again, we don't realize that we've forgotten. So I think that process of remembering is just ongoing. It doesn't stop. in my journey of like remembering, I've taken classes on curanderismo, and so like that process and that journey has me remembering certain things. Ancestral medicine, my just spiritual practice, just spirituality for me is like a daily thing, and it's something that will inspire me in just a variety of ways.
So how did COVID impact the art you were creating, and did your creative process somehow change along the way in any way?
You know, it deeply impacted me. I think initially I was in shock, kind of, because I had events that were canceled, like so many other vendors, right? So many other people, everyone, right? Had things canceled. But they were like big events that I was like really looking forward to. So in my mind, I was already, oh, cool, I'm booked. I have, whatever. This is going to be a busy weekend. And then that was like done. And so there's part of me that was like, okay, well, hopefully things will get back up running soon. So I'm just going to hold on to all like my inventory. And then a friend of mine was like, nah, you got to open up an online store. So that is finally what prompted me to open up an online store. Because part of me is a little old school and likes doing pop-ups, likes to be in person and meet folks and share the story like behind certain things or what motivated or inspired something. And of course you can do that online, but there's part of me that just like really loves being in community and like being in like a market, right? That's something that our ancestors have done for hundreds and hundreds of years. So to continue that legacy, it's just beautiful. So anyway, I didn't open up an online store until COVID, and production of some of my pieces slowed down because it required laser work. Like I have things that are laser cut and etched, and just there wasn't access or easy access to the laser as there once was. So yeah, things slowed down quite a bit. But I'm thankful for like the support of my family and just being able to continue to nurture my business, what I create, my offerings. So that's what has helped me to stay here and continue to create. I did create some new designs, but I think just not being in those spaces kind of got to me to an extent. And I just kind of allowed myself to slow down a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So, I saw that you did stuff for Nirvana Soul, like you were selling there,
yeah,
right?
That was recent. Yeah. I was so happy about that because it's such a beautiful space.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful space. And, it's unfortunate because it feels like sometimes those spaces in San Jose are rare. I happened to go into Nirvana Soul and was in conversation with one of the owners, and so she invited me to come bend.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was super sweet, so I'm just so grateful to have been in that space. Like, it's just a beautiful space.
What advice do you have for people pursuing a creative path in like making things, making jewelry?
Something that I've shared with folks that I did last year was I did an online business course for entrepreneurs of color.
Oh, okay.
And it was free to entrepreneurs of color as long as you like committed to it. I really struggled with it.
Oh, okay.
Because it was really difficult for me, somebody who is motivated by spirit, right? I feel like sometimes I don't necessarily always like make things to sell.
Yeah.
My lane is kind of waiting to be like divinely guided. I don't want to sound like
yeah, I get what you mean though.
It's hard to put into words. So I thought of business classes and courses as really, really white spaces that may not be so
inclusive.
Not only inclusive, but understanding of me when I'm saying like this is a deeply spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And with business, sometimes things are super cut and dry, right? And so with this business course that I took, it was a holistic business course. Like we meditated before each class.
Oh, that's cool.
It was really beautiful. And to be in a space with entrepreneurs of color, and this is also during COVID, so we're all like, many of us dealing with the same struggles, right? As being like small businesses. So for me, that was a very like comforting and healing space. So I often share that with folks. But definitely encourage people, like, just if you have an idea that's already out there, or not that it's out there, but an idea that no one else is doing, like, I think that that's something that folks should really nurture. So yeah, I try to be as helpful as I can, but I think there's a lot still that I'm working on myself too, and trying to understand on how to run a business.
What message do you hope to leave your audience with through your art?
Things that I make many times are deeply connected to healing and to understanding, and I think are rooted in love. So if anything, I think that's what I would like to leave folks with. Maybe deepening awareness of self, and love.
Oh, that's nice. And then lastly, where can people find your work?
So Instagram, my handle is shopsoladera. Of course, email is shop.soladera@gmail.com. And then my website is, I always forget it.
I can just insert the text. It's right here on the screen somewhere.
I had a great time interviewing Carlos and Julisa. Make sure to check out all of their work. Everything will be linked in the description. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to the Mosaic YouTube channel, and also keep a lookout for part 2 of the video series where I talk to 2 more Latinx owned businesses, and these businesses use their food to embrace their culture. And yeah, thanks for watching.